What up, brethren? It's Humanist with Attitude. I am RAO Laster, and joining me today is Alex D. How you doing today, Alex?
Doing well. It's a nice balmy day in Ohio.
Oh yeah, this man, the weather is pretty much bipolar right now.
And that's how it's good. That's how it always is here. You know, the joke was the weather drops from 95 to 55 like it saw a state trooper.
That's exactly what we saw over here too. But today, Alex and this was actually Alex's topic. He wanted to bring up one of these Prager University fireside chats, and I watched it against my better judgment so that I could have something to talk about. Man, those things make me thankful for the skip ad button.
No, and I think like what's most interesting about these is that they follow a few patterns, and it's so similar to the way that someone's trying to sell you something, right? Like there's a reason they think of MLMs as cults and religions as cults also, because if you listen, there's a lot of similarities to the way they do stuff. Like one of the things that they do is they try to make you feel like you're smarter, you're set apart from other people who just don't get it. And if you're trying to explain your point of view and that someone else isn't buying into it, you know what? You're the smart one. They're the ones who just aren't getting it. And they like the Prager U especially. And of course, I have a sample size of 2, so I can't say that all videos are like this. But it seems like they have chosen someone to pit yourself against, and they call it the left.
Right, and they even, well, we're gonna get into all that later, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
the same thing with William Lane Craig, aka stay in your goddamn lane, Craig. Because that's exactly what I hear every time is no, I don't want to buy a Kirby vacuum.
Yeah, and of course, it should be no surprise that PragerU tries to sell you stuff. And I get it. You know what? Companies are allowed to sell stuff. But when they put it under the guise of, this is just good philosophical life advice, you should buy my book. You should watch my movie. It starts to come across as a little disingenuous.
Well,
But that's not to say that the information isn't good. So maybe there's some good wisdom that can be gleaned from these fireside chats. So we should take a look.
all right, let's get into this. I'm gonna do my best to see if this is the first time I'm doing a reply video like this, and I just prefer to go live because I want it to be candid. I don't like, well, let's go ahead and get started here.
Sure. Now, fortunately, for everybody following along who wants to watch this video, it's easily searchable. You can just you can see the title of it over there. And they've also very conveniently put timestamps on the different topics that they like to talk about. That makes our job a lot easier.
Yeah, so,
And it also makes you, because I don't want to misrepresent anything that's going on there. So I don't want you to think that I'm trying to take their quotes out of context. If you want to see what the original version is, absolutely feel free to do so.
all right, without further ado, let's listen to Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
This is my home. This is Otto. Say hi, Otto. Oh, Otto's in the other direction today, but I don't want to wake him up because then, all's good. All right, go back to sleep. Okay, good man. See, because
Yeah,
if
I
I
get it.
got
He
him
loves his
up,
dog.
you'd watch him, not me. I know that. I am no competition for Otto. Otto gets people looking at him when he's sleeping.
And that's kind of like this nice. It's setting up the stage here, right? This is just a nice, friendly chat. There's absolutely no propaganda going on here. It's just nice, friendly, very at home kind of chill. We're not going to be disseminating some seriously flawed arguments. We're just going to be talking. We're just going to be like two buddies hanging out.
I was just gonna,
It's a good
I was
setup.
just gonna say, let's cut back to the dog and hear what he has to say. All right, let's get back into it.
So if he were awake, I'd be doomed. Anyway, welcome to my home. It is my home. And this is the
Oh, you like to do
fireside
it like
chat.
you do, nice and unscripted.
Every week, I get a chance to talk to you, completely unscripted.
Okay,
In fact,
I
we
can't hear, so I'm
decide
trying to
what
follow
my-
along on my video as I'm looking at the
I'm at
captions.
the
So
46-second mark right now. I'm paused.
okay. No, keep going. We're good. There's the real meaty stuff starts. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
I mean, comments will be like a minute before. I want it to be as spontaneous as possible, as real as possible.
How do I stay happy? Are you at that one yet? No, I
Oh
don't think
no
you're there
no,
yet.
I'm
So,
having to pause and cut back and get back to the video because we're doing this
uh,
live. But
okay.
I do think, dude. So far, we're on level ground. I like to go live so that I'm unscripted and candid. He doesn't like to have a lot of time to prepare, so he can be unscripted and candid. I mean, yeah, this is seeming really friendly so far. Let's dig a little bit further into it.
Yeah.
Then I take your questions. So, hi, everybody around the world, literally. Nice to be with you.
Now, can the audience
So,
hear what's
Megan,
going
who
on?
looks at your
Can
questions,
your
there are
YouTube
thousands of
audience
them,
hear
she
the
told
I
video?
hope
me.
Because I
so.
can't.
Last we counted
Okay.
from 51 countries.
Okay. And I'll give it a
Is
quick
a
listen
lot
here.
of people ask, how do I stay happy, maintain my calm,
Yeah, they can.
in light of what is happening specifically in America? And what they're referring to is, and the question is completely accurate, I fear for the future of America. And
All right, you want something? You had something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So I'm reviewing it, and there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about as I watched this. I don't have like a, but what I don't know if you got to that comment yet. Is it the 146 mark or something about how the United States is a finger in the dike of
That was
uh,
157. I had actually had that one written down.
it's like, wow. And this is another thing that Prager U is going to do. They're going to make an assertion like that, and they're going to give absolutely no evidence to back it up. And so it's hard to figure out, like, where are you getting this? Like, I get it. Everybody has a different point where they feel like they're in danger. Everybody has a different point where they feel like their safety is in question. I get that, but can you back it up with something? And when you say that the United States is the only thing that's preventing, global genocide, it's like, do you have anything here? Because it seems like there's plenty of things that are going on that the United States isn't doing anything about. Seems like there's a lot of things the United States is doing that is a little on the questionable side. So where are you coming up with this? And I'm not even. It's hard to argue a point that they're not defending.
Well, it's
Does that make
it,
sense?
it's an assertion without evidence.
Right.
He's just saying that he's just. Let's continue a little bit on because I actually want to get to that.
Yeah.
I want to get to that spot that you were talking about.
and if
Do it.
America fails, the amount of cruelty, genocide, like genocide, that will take place in the world is immeasurable. The United States is the finger in the dike of the flood of evil that would take place in the world were it not for America's strength and commitment to liberty. And it's being undermined for the
Oh, undermined for the first time in American history. Don't know if I feel like I like
first
that.
time in American history.
Ooh, yeah, I was hearing that along with you, and
Yeah.
this is. I mean, okay. First of all, I think this is just speculation, but I think "damn" would have been just as an appropriate word as "dyke."
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it would have worked just as well, and I think it was. I think it was that it was hate speech that you can get away with it because it's a synonym. I haven't always been humanist,
Uh-huh.
and there was a time that I was at a hardware store and I made a similar joke on ladies' night. So I can understand how I can completely understand how you would use a derogatory word in the place of a word that you could that of a different word that was more neutral. Damn has the same amount. No. Actually, the damn I was thinking about has the same amount of letters. The damn that actually applies has one less letter. So we can save ink by not being homophobic.
Right. And I get it. Like it seems like little things like that could be jabs, but this is where it gets weird, because people can guess what they're trying to do, and people can kind of guess, and if nobody calls them out on it, it seems like it's okay, right? And then other people are going to listen to, like, microaggressions works in this way, right? Where someone makes some offhand comment about, like, oh, crazy woman drivers, and if nobody calls them out on it, then it starts to escalate from there. And they don't just talk about crazy women drivers, then it starts to get into other things that women are no good at, and pretty soon it gets to really misogynistic places. But you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on. It's like, oh, you let a couple of jokes go, you even laughed at it, so can you even tell this guy, hey, you're taking this too far?
Well,
the study of microaggressions is fascinating.
I understood it. It was right around July when I started to understand humanism, and it went from N-bombs being casual conversation to people being afraid to say it around me in about a week's period, and I'm proud of myself for that.
As you should be, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like, and they'll talk about this later too, where they're very big on freedom of speech. Where, yeah, the government probably should be giving a little bit of leeway as far as what conversation is at least not illegal, but that doesn't mean that on a social level we should find all this to be acceptable. There's a difference between what is legal and what is acceptable, and I think that as individuals we can act to prevent speech from escalating to the point where it becomes action.
But just on the topic, just on the topic, without any of the underlying potentially subliminal bullshit. A finger in the dam of morality. America is a finger in the dam of morality.
Yeah, we're the only thing that's holding everything together. If it wasn't for us, then and not just us, but it has to be like a specific core group of people within us that are fighting against other people within the country. And the only reason that we're able to do this, and we're struggling mightily to do this, is because I don't know. It's a very othering concept where it's like, here's the United States, and we're just holding the entire world back from depravity. I don't have enough justification for this.
I actually have plenty of evidence in the EU that America is not the only thing holding back morality. The EU,
oh, yeah.
with their form of democratic socialism, are thriving, and they are making humanism a priority.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think he talks about Cuba later. We should stop and talk to that. Anyway, we're interrupting far too much. Let's give him some rope.
All right, let's let him hang himself a little.
Actually, there has never been such a battle. Well, the Civil War in the United States history over slavery might be comparable.
This pissed me off.
Oh yeah, a little comparison to the Civil War there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and change it up. When he says might be comparable. No, the Civil War was fucking terrible. We lost more Americans during the Civil War than any other war in history.
It seems a little weird to equate it to that, and you'll see that this isn't the only time that he compares what's going on to battle, right? Like later on, he's going to talk about if you go further down in the video, he's going to talk about the three types of people, right? And he's going to the three types of good people.
The fighters, the people who support the fighters, and the people who don't do nothing.
Right, and he doesn't say people though; he says troops. So it's like, why are we thinking of this as a war? Can we think of this as a way to come to mutual understanding? It seems weird that it's being framed in the concept the concept of conflict, or not just conflict, but like armed, violent conflict. Of course, there's conflict. Conflict happens. I'm married. Of course, there are conflicts, but not to the point where we think of ourselves as in battle against each other. And it's the little subtle mentions of that. Let's talk about the Civil War. Let's talk about Nazis. Let's talk about troops. That gets people in the mindset of, this is like combat, and we should brace for combat.
Well,
it's genius, but it's a little ingenuous.
Well, what I see is I equate debates to either a chess game or a boxing match. I actually asked Matt if he posited my definition of warship in order to keep me on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him that because I was equating, well, metaphorically using a boxing match for the debate. And yes, it is a competition. A debate's a competition. There is no reason that we have to turn a competition into a war.
No, no. We're running a little low on time here, so do you think we could skip over to, I don't know, let's where's the next good place? Because we're spending a lot of time and we're only about 2 minutes in
Oh,
here. So what's the next major point that you wanted to talk about?
let's see. 623.
Ooh, okay.
We'll go ahead and cut back to 606.
I
With a
can
lot of
listen on my
liberals
end.
in the movie. I mean, you'll quite be shocked. So yes, I am really, really worried. The lies told about America, the least racist country in human history, is called racist all the time.
The least
Is
racist.
Okay, now I am the entirely wrong person to talk about racist things, and I knew this was on here, but when it comes to racial relations, I'm just figuring things out, okay? And being a person in the United States who is clearly not white but also clearly not black kind of puts me in a weird position when it comes to racial relations, right? Um, so, like I've gotten go back to your country also, and I understand that I have one of those ethnicities. I don't look like I am obviously one thing or another, and
Oh, you look
so
American to
people
me.
don't really know how to relate. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But when it comes to racism, it's hard. Like I'm just figuring out the beginnings of this, and the one thing that I've been able to figure out is that there doesn't seem to be like one set definition that everybody's using. So when Dennis over here is using racist or saying it's the least racist or most racist and whatnot, this will come up later on in this too, where there's a call about whiteness. Um, it's like you really got to figure out what that person is talking about when they mean racism. Are they talking about like systemic racism? Are they talking about individual biases? So I don't know what he's trying to talk about. I wish he was a little bit more clear. And it seems to be he's using an umbrella term to try to get more people on this side. That way you agree with this. It's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So it makes you more amenable to agreeing to the next few points, which he's going to get
Well,
to
when
here.
you say that America is the least racist country of all time, um, I have coworkers with rebel flags hanging in their windows. I have coworkers who use racism casually to a point that they don't even understand it as racism. And I
Mhm.
understand I understand racism because I'm a white dude, because I'm the majority. I don't understand racial discrimination because I've never had to deal with well, actually I have had to deal with racial discrimination. As a white guy, I had to deal with being a black guy for a few months because
Hmm.
there was a report that a black guy jumped out of a window during a search on my house. And because a black guy jumped out of the window, I was greeted at the door by being thrown to the ground and having an assault rifle jammed against the back of my fucking head.
Whoops.
Because the.
Well, I like the story that I've got is that I was one day, it was late at night, about 11:30 midnight, and I was on my phone outside the house because my wife was asleep. I didn't want to disturb her. I was talking to a friend, so I was out of my house, and I was in my pajama pants and t-shirts, so I didn't have an ID on me. Apparently, one of my neighbors called on me and said, "Hey, there's this guy. He's been just walking out on the street. He's been on his phone for about 15 minutes." Now, the weird thing is, I don't know whether I can apply this to the fact that we just don't get to know our neighbors anymore, or whether or not I was racially profiled. Like, there's no way that I could know that, right? But it seems like it may have had something to do with it. I couldn't say for sure. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, based on your
Yeah.
build, I would not have thought anything of it. Now,
Okay.
if you were about 20 to 30 pounds lighter, I would suspect methamphetamine use. But that's just because of the regions that I come from.
I've never been so happy to have a pot belly. Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I mean, I don't base it. I base a suspicious person Not on the way they look, but on their movements and mannerisms. And
Okay.
you can tell when somebody's fidgeting around, or you can tell when somebody's just being there. So if they were paying attention enough to be able to call the police on you, if they if you live across the street from them, it's not a matter of knowing your neighbors. I don't know my neighbor, but I know what she looks like. And if your neighbors are calling the police on you for being a suspicious person, it just kind of sounds like all brown people look the same.
And to be treated with the same level of general suspicion. Um, can we skip ahead to 14
I
minutes?
didn't even
I think that
I didn't even get to the 14-minute mark in my notes, but we'll go ahead and I'll go over to there
okay.
and I'll see what you have to say about that, and I'll see what I have for a reply.
Okay.
Bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. The line I came up with many years ago.
Now, okay, so this wasn't exactly where
It
it is,
remains.
but this is another thing that Prager likes to do. They like to present that good old false dichotomy, right? And they say it's as simple and black and white. The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. But they don't think about things that are done to make sure that we are able to do more ththings, right? And I can't give any good examples right now. Like you said, this is a little bit unscripted. It'd be nice if like next time I do this, I have a lot more
I can
paperwork to
give you
back
a
it up.
perfect
Okay?
example right now.
Go for it.
The interstate highway system
Hmm.
is a product of federal government. It is a socialist program. So,
Yeah, and to see the government as strictly as the bigger the government gets, the smaller the citizen gets. There's so much more to it than that. But he presents it in such an authoritative way that it's almost difficult to show anybody that it's
well,
not true.
how much power did the interstate highway system give to the people?
Gives us freedom of mobility. I suppose it cost us a little bit, but it's a little bit easier to get around.
Well, it was an upfront cost. You have to pay
Right.
more upfront to save more later, because instead of Route 66 running down the entire south end and places that it never even reaches, the interstate highway system is connected in a manner that you can expedite transport. So it's giving. Oh,
Now,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, please, please,
So
please.
it's giving these private businesses the ability to get goods from New York, from California, from Florida. I just picked the three worst examples possible. But
No,
yeah,
I get where you're coming from,
they're
and that's
all
what
on
I'm
the
talking about.
outsides, and you
Yeah.
can get Oklahoma City has I-44, I-40, and I-35 all running through it, and they can get products from anywhere in America because of the interstate highway system. And these small business owners are becoming more powerful because of the fact that they have this socialist interstate highway program.
Yeah. So whenever I hear like, and this is one of my big beefs that I've been paying attention to Prager U, they present these false dichotomies or these false dilemmas, and again, they don't bother to back it up with anything, probably because they can't back it up with anything. But an average person who's watching this, I can imagine, is not going to be going through and saying, "Hey, you know what? I wonder if that's true. If the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen," because it's presented in such a crisp, simple way. And then he'll even say there's like I can't imagine why I would have to explain this to anybody. And then you get on the defensive because you feel like, wait a second, it doesn't make sense to me, but if it makes sense to everybody else, I should probably just go along with it. This is a very interesting, it's like a selling tactic and it's a persuasion tactic, and it's being used here. It's fascinating.
It's a
Anyway,
pitch.
yeah, it is a pitch. So can we move on to the first video question? I think is at 1440. Because now it gets to some interesting stuff.
That was an important subject. Your questions. So we now have
Because here's another sales
what is
pitch
this, a
tactic right
tryout
here,
period
and it's coming up.
I
Let's
think
see.
it's a great idea
I can't see it on my
of
scale here.
video questions.
Here you go. It
Hold
actually
on a
starts at
second.
the
So
16-minute mark.
if you have a video
we start
question,
at 16.
send it to us.
Start
Fair
at
enough.
16.
Tell us who you are, obviously.
Yeah, 1555
Hi, Dennis.
rounder. Yeah.
I'm Devin from California. I'm 24 years old, going to be 25, and I have a question for you.
Hold
My
on.
question.
Let's just talk about the. I'm 24. I'm gonna be 25. I've got two problems with this. First of all,
Well, first of all, thanks for clearing that up because I didn't know that that's what happens after you turn 24.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. Is first of all, you can't guarantee that she's going to be 25. There could be there could be a Metro Transit bus that says otherwise later today. I hope that doesn't happen for her sake, but you can't say I'm going to be 25 because I'm 24. Second, how stupid do you think the person you're talking to is if you have to tell them the number after the age you currently are?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give this a pass on. Just what they're doing a video call is probably a little nerve wracking. I've probably said some stupid things on camera just because I'm live and I don't have a chance to go over my words. I can understand the nervousness, but that is I get it. My big gripe about this is yet another sales tactic. All right, and one thing that you want to do if you're marketing to the group that you want to.
I didn't even get to the question.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't even get to the question because I was just dealing.
Oh,
and I understand, yes, that people can be nervous on video chat. At the same time, we got TikTok and Snapchat, so people should be used to this shit by now.
Oh man, I've never sent a TikTok. Anyway, Megan's interesting question.
Right.
Let's hear it. It's a good question, actually. I like it.
Question is, what are your thoughts about moving in before marriage?
That's quick and to the point. Hi, Devin.
Okay.
So Devin's.
It's not a bad question.
Let's let him.
It's a legitimate
finish
question.
a response to the question, and then we'll see what we have to say about his response to it.
I'd be okay with that if he doesn't drone on and on about a whole bunch of persuasion talk first before actually giving his answer.
A car with a license
I'm trying to figure out where he puts his answer. It's way further ahead. I think I sent it in a message to you. I think his actual explanation starts at 17. Like he spends that much time buttering you up. The answer first.
Is the timestamp you gave me, so I'll go ahead and give him 10 seconds so we can get some context.
Okay.
That seems true. You will get to know somebody well 24/7. Okay. But so why then?
Okay, I'm a little few seconds behind you.
Together before marriage, divorce at a greater rate. This is just data. This is not religious, secular, right wing, left wing. It's just data. Once I heard the reason.
Oh, couples that live together before marriage, divorced at a greater rate. Okay, first of all, I don't know where they're coming up with the numbers for this, right? Like, if it's out there, that's fine. But can you link your study? Can you link your sources? Otherwise, it just sounds like you're making this up out of nothing. And I'm not saying it might even be true. It might even be true that couples who live together have a higher divorce rate. I don't know. But the thing that grabbed me most about this is that this is Mr. Freedom, right? And he's all about being able to make your own choices, blah, blah, blah. So it seems weird that in 15 minutes we went from there's forces out there that are trying to take away your personal liberty. And then now he goes over here and gives, I guess, what he thinks to be practical advice, which you'd think that if he's giving practical advice, the only answer you should give to this question is, you know what? You know your relationship better than anybody else. Okay. And we trust that you're going to make the right decisions for you. And the worst thing that I could do is put any sort of influence at all on your decision-making processes, which takes away your personal agency as an American citizen. That seems to be what's more consistent with the message. So to go into here and then all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? You're probably going to get divorced more likely if you move in together. It seems a little disingenuous.
You're also not factoring in that when he specifies, and I'm not talking about religious or secular, people who don't move in before marriage are almost always religious and or Christian. Because anybody with a brain knows that you have to if you're going to make a lifelong commitment with somebody, you're going to have to at least have a trial period. You're going to have to see if you can live together before you decide if you're going to get married and sign a government contract that says you're going to keep living together and being married. So,
yeah, I mean, there's ways to justify it, and certainly there are, we can both think of examples in our lives of relationships that probably would have gone better and smoother had they had that opportunity to live together and decide if they wanted to be married. He presents an interesting case. Dennis actually presents a case that, honestly, it makes some sense, but he takes that logic from saying, well, this is how some relationships works, so all relationships must work that way. And it's the overgeneralization is another big thing that I really don't like that happens in this channel. It's like it happens here, so it must be the case everywhere. Not a fan.
Besides the fact that he's just making a generalization that if this is the way it works and this is the way it has to work all the time, what he's not seeing is that people who don't, well, like I was saying before, people who don't live together before marriage are most often Christian, because that's exactly what Baptist teaches you. That's exactly what Catholic teaches you. That's exactly what damn near everything except for Episcopalian and Unitarian teaches you, is that you don't live together before marriage. So the people who don't live together before marriage are the same people who fear for their eternal soul by getting a divorce. So they will stay in a bad, toxic, abusive relationship, because that bad, toxic, abusive relationship is better than the eternal torture that their invisible sky daddy promises them if they get divorced.
Well, he actually said earlier in this, and again, you guys can go back and watch it if you want to. He's trying to give as non-religious of an answer as possible, and he probably succeeded in that. And so, does religion have anything to do with this decision? Probably, but I also know some people who made these decisions on more. It's impossible to say that it was not religiously based at all, because it might give you a little bias if you grew up in a household, even if you don't think you're making it for a religious reason. Maybe the reason that it was introduced to you anyway kind of was. My whole thing about this is, you know what? Relationships, there's too many variables, there's too many individualized factors to be able to give any meaningful advice to one specific person. And this is about to come up with the next question, because you see what we're going to talk about next, right? You see his next topic?
Let's see, the concept. I didn't until just now.
All right. Now, I have a feeling we can go on and on about this, and race relations is something that's fascinating to talk about. I'm the wrong person to refer to as an expert on this. I would be the person that you bring into school about this, all right? But there's an interesting question that's about to come in here. And the way he handles this is a little suspicious. So it starts at 2137.
2137? All right. I'll go ahead and get us over there. But what I'm thinking about this is I'm white and you're brown, so if we're going to talk about race relations, this is probably the best way to do it. Because we've got somebody from each side, and we've got somebody who's neutral.
Okay. Let's put a pin in this, because I don't have a lot of time, and we still have like 10 minutes of video to go, so... But definitely, if we want to come back to this, I would be open to talking to you about this, as long as we go into it knowing that I definitely am not an expert on this. I don't pretend to speak for how race relations should be run. I can just give my personal experiences.
All right,
So let's hear what he has to say about whiteness at 2141.
All right, I've got it set up now. Let's go ahead and do it.
There you go. Chance, 25, Bakersfield, California. Hello, Mr. Prager. One of my college professors believes in, quote, the concept of whiteness. Your professor is a racist. The only people who believed in the concept of whiteness prior to this very
can we stop that about 22?
Were Nazis.
Okay. He's going to go on to say that he has no idea what it means to be whiteness, and it's such a disturbing thing to listen to, because I don't think it's right to be able to like give a definitive statement about something unless you know what the other person is talking about, right? Like even with Dennis Prager, I have a rough idea what's going on, but I don't want to attribute any sort of intent or any sort of agenda. It seems like it should be able to, but I try to make it conscious not to. Now here he is talking about a professor who says they believe in the concept of whiteness, and knowing nothing else about the professor is going to make a lot of assertions about him. This is another, to me, it's another form of othering. It's like saying, you know what, you ran into one of those, the left people, and look, this is proof that the left is overrunning the universities. You've heard that one before?
I've
you
heard
heard
it
that?
several
Okay.
times. The religious will
Okay.
will condemn college because people come back atheist or agnostic.
You know what? School must be very different now than it was when I was going to college, because I don't recall a single one of my professors ever trying to like preach a humanist or atheistic perspective. You know, when I went to history class, I studied history. And of course, you can't talk about history without studying about the religion in that area. That's fine. I respect that. But I don't think any specific professors have ever pushed an agenda on me. Now, this is going to be just my experience, and I went to University of Alaska, so maybe not the best place to talk about. But it would be interesting. Let's find out. Do we know any college students who can talk about this actually happening? Otherwise, it seems kind of urban legend, doesn't it? It's like, ooh, I know someone who went to a class who had a professor who was talking about being an atheist. It's like it's never firsthand experience. It's always I know someone who knew someone who knew someone who, and yes, that's how we know that universities are bastions of liberal thought.
I honestly think I agree with it. I agree that colleges and universities lean toward liberal and progressive thought. It's because when you get educated, when you get out of your echo chamber, when you get away from we're right because we're the ones here and nobody else is telling us we're wrong. When you get into that, when you get out of that and you actually start to meet people, it's hard to not be humanist.
Right. Then you think about the things that might have worked in your circle, but definitely doesn't work for this one. Now we all have to coexist. We all have to find a way to deal with this. And does that tend to lean someone toward liberal tendencies? Probably, especially in an environment like a school where you have to work with these people, especially in the workplace where you have to find a way to coexist. Yeah. But then I can also kind of understand how you would want to make something more insular. Saying something like, you know what, that's a very confusing world out there. Let's just stick to our little town. I can almost understand the appeal of that, where, yeah, I don't want to have to mess with that. I just want to believe what I believe and do what I do. And as long as I keep to myself, I shouldn't be a problem. So it's a weird place to be, and I'd love to explore this more. But we are, like, I apologize. I have to be at work soon, so I don't have as much time for this as I would like. But the last piece of advice on here, and I want to end this on a positive. Can we go to, let's see, 26:45.
All right, I've got us at 26:35 to give us some context.
Okay, the question actually, like, he actually answers or asks the question right at 20:45, but play it from wherever you'd like.
In the micro, standards in the macro.
I wish we had more time for this. You know what? We'll talk later on
time frame?
after I'm done with work about ways we could do the next one better.
Okay. Next.
Okay.
Phil in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 37 years old. Dennis, what do you think is the single most important thing that couples need to say to one another if they feel like their
Okay, so
relationship is falling
27:20 is
apart?
when he finishes giving that answer. So go ahead and keep going until
they
that.
should say, why
It
is
actually
it
says
falling
something really
apart?
interesting.
That's the most important thing. And they should do it without speaking. They should do it instant message. They should each sit in separate rooms, and they should type
Now,
in
I don't know,
their
like,
dialogue.
what kind of people have
That way
decided
you're forced.
that this is a good person to go to about relationship advice. But this isn't actually a horrible idea, because one of the things that happens in face-to-face conversation is you don't have that cooling off time. When you write, he makes a good point about this. When you write, you actually have some time to think about what you're going to say. You can go back over what you said and say, did I say this in the most clear way? Did I say this in the kindest way? The only real gripe I have about this is that it's not going to work for everybody.
Well, the other
And
benefit that this
if
has
so,
is
yeah.
that when you're typing, you can't get interrupted. And I specifically interrupted you
Right.
for the purpose of, yes,
To prove
because
that.
if we're texting each other, you have to read the message and reply, or you don't read the message and reply. You can't just you
Right.
can't just cut somebody off when they disagree with you. You actually have to figure it out. And so yeah, I totally agree with Dennis on this one. If people are struggling in a relationship, give yourself time to think, give yourself time to write, give yourself time to reply, and we can make something work.
Right. So the way I want to end this first review of a fireside video is that, you know what, we don't like a lot of the things that are said on here. We disagree fundamentally on a lot of the primary core values that drive his worldview and the ones that drive my worldview, and I'm guessing yours also. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be antagonistic toward everything that comes out of it. This was sound relationship advice. It might not work for every relationship, but you know what? It's something that if you haven't tried it before, yeah, give it a shot and see what happens. So it's good to be able to like bridge these gaps and to be able to not look at us as you think so fundamentally different from me that our differences are irreconcilable, and by definition, you are going and working against every single thing that I am trying to fight for. Because Dennis and I are going to agree on a lot of good things. We're going to agree that we want to take our marriages and relationships seriously. We're going to agree that we want our coworker a nice, respectful environment at work. Exactly the values that drive that might be different. The exact methods by which we would initially try to get there are most likely going to be different. But that doesn't mean that we don't have similar ground that we can share and begin to work from.
I am really glad that you brought that up for a last statement for to close. It's amazing to have that kind of thought process available, and I think of it as we are spectrums of a rainbow. We are not ends of a battery. We don't have to be positive or negative. We can be shades. We can find places where we have common ground, and we can figure out the best way for the individual to handle the places where we have differences.
Right, and as long as we take these differences, I mean, it's good to have different perspectives on the problem. I'm going to be thinking about different issues than Dennis is. Dennis is going to come up with different issues than I would come up with, and that's great because we want to try to come up with as many different potentials as possible and try to solve as many problems while minimizing harm and minimizing damage that we might be causing. So. Thank you so much for letting me be on your show today. I would look forward to doing another video with you sometime. I guess they do these
Well,
every
Alex,
week.
we are going to. I'm going to get some more time to prepare. I'm going to look over this and see how the quality is and see what I need to change. But I would love to do this again with you sometime.
And we put a pin in about like 10 different conversation topics. So if you want me on, even if it's not talking about fireside chats as a response, let me know and I'll see what I can get
I try
online
to
with
do
you.
the regular Humanist with Attitude show once a week just to talk about political topics
Okay.
in general. And I'd love to have you there as well. But yeah, I'm gonna let you get to work, and I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. You've actually got one of my longest videos that I've had on the channel so far. So
Whoopsies. Sorry about that. I tend
why
to
the hell
just
are
kind of
you
go on and on.
apologizing?
As long as I'm consistent
Oh
with your
man.
brand.
Well, it was great to talk to you, Alex, and we've got to do this again sometime.
All
All right,
right.
and
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much.
viewers.